All right. Welcome back. We had a little bit of a COVID hiatus. Apologies.
Somebody got sick.
Yeah.
So we had to skip an episode.
Yeah.
You got the vid. But you're good now.
We're here to talk about me. Not about COVID. It's been a little while since we did Randy's episode. That was season 1.
Episode 5. So if you want to know about me, episode 5, season 1, we're going to focus on Dave today and figure out who the man is. Some of you have been asking, like, who exactly is Dave, other than...
Who's this MILK4COFFEE person?
Who's this Milky? Yeah.
Milky?
Yeah.
So Randy Spar, owner of 11Tenths, and myself, David Belazek, MILK4COFFEE.
Yeah.
So let's dive right into it. I don't really want to talk about myself, but here we are.
I insisted. I go, we need to know more about Dave, right? A lot of people are asking. So, all right, let's start off. Year 0, when were you born?
I'm an 80s baby.
80s?
I don't identify as a millennial.
Yeah,
I am, I guess.
He's an old spirit.
Yes, that's for sure. But 80s baby, and that's kind of literally where it all started, was enjoying the Sunday drives with my dad. He had a 86 E23 7 Series.
Oh yeah, the good old 7.
I always wanted to sit in the back passenger seat so I could see the speedo and the tack. Every car I sat in.
That's cool.
We used to take that car down to Florida.
Yeah.
Long drives down for Disneyland or whatnot, and I don't know, that was the memory maker, right? But it was only the special occasion car. The other car in the driveway was a bullnose 1990 something Grand Am, which set the standard for ugly ass cars, I'll tell you right now. You don't even see them around anymore.
Was that Mom's car?
That was Mom's car.
Oh.
She could get to work before it would heat up. Like that.
Yeah.
So we had a wide range of cars in the driveway, but
you do have an older brother, right?
Had an older brother, what am I talking about?
How much older is he?
12 years. Years makes no difference.
Yeah.
So don't ask, no questions. I was a miracle, not a surprise. That's what my mom tells me. So the interesting part there was he was always an influence. His first car was an Acura Integra, which in the 90s, that was a huge car. And I remember him getting chrome rims and whatnot for that. And, he used to take me around and dick around in that. And that was an influence. And then he actually got Dad's car, which was a 97 E39 and 528.
Okay. Those are cool cars.
That was the first car I hit 200 kilometers an hour in. So did
you have a license at this time or not yet?
I did. So I'll jump ahead a little bit. So here's the story here. I didn't know Dad was going to sell the car to my brother. I just thought he was going to sell it. So I ripped on it without Dad knowing. I just took it out one day into the country and just, let's see how fast it can go. I hit the limiter out in like Mannheim.
Yeah.
So it was
try shifting without a clutch, see what happens.
I didn't do any tranny drops, which would have been really bad. The head ended up going on that car. That was fun. The best part was the electronics, because I remember my brother would hit to change the radio station and the moonroof would open near the end, so it was pretty messed. But yeah, so that car had a lot of memories. Dad had a E39 530 then, which was just a beautiful car. That was the car I took to prom, and
those are nice cars.
It was a beautiful car.
Even to this day, like the 530 E39.
There's a really weird story about that. I'll never forget this. We were going to BMW Grand River. Dad's looking at this car brand new, and I know Dad's like, he had the 528 and he's hot to trot. He wants a 540. He's like, I want the V8 now.
Yeah.
The salesperson at the time literally talked him into a 530.
Yeah.
He talked him out of a 540 and into a 530. And I look, I'm like, what are you doing?
He's a smart guy.
Actually, yeah, you know what?
That's the way to go.
I guess it is. And it was loaded by comparison, but like...
It doesn't have the V8 sound. It doesn't have, it lacks maybe like 40, 50 horsepower, but...
Yeah.
But it's got a better steering system. You got the rack instead of the ball.
Yeah, the reciprocating, right?
Yeah.
The funny part, I remember the very first memory I have of those E39s was when the wheel was full lock, like when you parked, you could see how much camber they had built into the rack. It was wild.
Yeah.
And you'd like, why? And that's obviously they built those cars for a good reason there.
Yeah.
So I used to take that car without Dad knowing to high school. Because high school wasn't that far from home, so I used to kind of drive around and like cart Dad around, and then I'd be worried in class the whole time. I'd be like, "Oh my God, is my dad passing by the school?" Or
I never found out.
I think, well, if I didn't come clean to Dad yet, he always watches these. So, hi, Dad. I always return it in mint condition. So that's
So next episode, if he's got makeup on,
black eye.
yeah.
So yeah, I'm sure he knew. Because later on in university, like I didn't get my first car for a while, but my parents let me take my first car. I actually drove regularly was my mom's Honda Accord. Learned to drive in that car, and I used to take that to university. The odd time also coming home from Toronto, take the car back to Toronto, use it while they were away, like on holidays or whatnot. And that was the first time they caught me because my dad started checking the mileage, and he's like, something's not right here. Because it's like hundreds of kilometers later.
So hold on, back up. So just a little bit of Dave lives in Kitchener. He grew up in Kitchener, right?
Yeah.
So did you go to school in Toronto?
I did. I went to school at Guelph Humber University, which is on Humber North Campus.
Okay. So that's where the commute is, right?
Yeah, that's where the commute came from. Right. So so of course you want a car, especially like if it was in Rexdale, I want to go downtown or whatnot. I gotta have a car. I don't want to take the 96 or whatever the express route was and go down. So yeah, that's when I got in trouble. That was the second time that I've been over 200 kilometers an hour. I think.
It was not because you were late for school, right?
No, God, no. I was just for 2 a.m. and matted. Just mad. I think between Milton and Guelph, there's a slight downhill.
Yeah.
And I think that car maxed out at like 206. I made it from the airport to Homer Watson, if you know Kitchener at all, in like 20 minutes. You can do that today for numerous reasons.
Yeah.
We don't encourage any of these things. I should put.
Yeah, there's also probably 3 times more traffic now.
3 times more traffic. Oh yeah, 100%. More traffic, more laws, and I shouldn't have been doing that at the age I was either. Let's be honest. But
but we're indestructible. When we were in our 20s, right? Well, we were doing crazy things. Like
it's true.
You had a couple motorcycles too, right? What kind of bike?
It was a 1985 Yamaha BW 200. Okay.
All right. What the hell is that? Sounds like a tank.
It was a tank. So basically, in the 80s, they had the Honda Fat Cat, and then they had the Yamaha Big Wheel 200. And they basically...
it's the ones with the fat tires, right?
Basically, ATV-sized tires on a motorcycle. So it was 200cc. It didn't have a lot of power.
It looks like one of those 3-wheelers, but with 2 wheels.
With 2 wheels. Yeah. So it was actually awesome. Like on the snow, on the sand especially, it was fantastic.
Yeah. Did they have suspension, or did they use the tire for the suspension?
A little bit of both. Okay. It was very low, low PSI in the tires. But it was a lot of fun and always different. And that was, I first started modifying that. That was like the first thing I had. I was like, okay, boom, let's get a exhaust on it. Let's drill some holes in the air cleaner box and like all sorts of, let's tune I learned how to tune a carb.
Yeah.
Tuning and washing carbs and kind of getting used to that. So, but that was where the recklessness started because it was like, okay, how high can we jump this thing? It wasn't a proper jumping dirt bike, but I'll put a picture up. I was showing Randy of like some seriously bottomed suspension. Yeah. And the thing had, because it was so heavy, it actually had 2 shocks in the back. It wasn't a single shock on the swing arm. Yeah. It was 2 shocks. So to bottom it out, you really had to move. But it was fun, learn how to pop a wheelie, start, fishtailing and jumping.
Never fell off, broke a limb?
No, surprisingly. Knock on wood, I still won't do that. The only thing that ever happened was, I remember I fell and I clipped a peg. Took a huge chunk out of my shin. I still have that scar. But no, nothing else. I got really, really lucky. Not that I never fell. Don't get me wrong. Like I ate sand plenty of times. But no, I never had a big crash, thank God. And then we had an ATV too. And that I also really drove hard. Again, sorry, Dad. So again, same thing. Used to just push that thing to the limit. It was a utility quad. It was a Yamaha Kodiak 400, and just push that to the limit wherever I could. And then I went off to school eventually and stopped doing that stuff. So there was that period of time with no car, and hence why I had to take a car. And never faded though. Like I loved cars all the time. Like
So when you were going to school, they were expecting you to take a transit or some sort of bus?
Yeah, I used to rock the Greyhound. back and forth.
Greyhound to school daily to Toronto.
Well, no. I lived on campus. I lived on campus and then close to campus for a while.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm learning also about this. I'm like,
yeah.
Okay. So you lived on campus.
I lived on campus.
All right.
And then in second or third year, I was 20 and I got my first car, which was a Mazda 3.
Yeah. Oh yeah, good old Mazda 3.
It was when
it's basically the Civic of the 2000s, right? So
the Mazda Protege was like huge. People like you had your Mazda Speed Protege, you had the Mazda Protege MP3, and they had the Mazda 3.
Yeah.
And they wanted to cover off the Civic market, so they had to make it good. It was actually a really good car. Yeah. Eibach springs, Borla stuff, Mazda Speed stuff.
Wheels.
Of course, wheels. I think they were 18s on that. Intake. Well, tint,
stereo.
12-inch subwoofer, and it was during the era where you could actually get like an Android screen.
Oh yeah.
And here's the thing. So the commute back, again, things you shouldn't do. The commute from Toronto to Kitchener was 45 minutes or an hour and a half in traffic.
So you're watching videos.
I'm watching movies on this thing in the right lane, just chugging along, right? I'm like, I'm just gonna go with traffic. So yeah. So
again, you shouldn't be doing that.
No, don't do that.
Don't do that.
I never had any accidents with that car.
Yeah.
Honestly, I never had anything.
Knock on wood.
I know. I've been fairly lucky. So, I'm sure it's wood or pressboard or something. Anyway,
cool.
Yeah.
So after the Mazda, then.
Well, the Mazda, I should say. So we were talking about La Paloma. La Paloma was like the go-to. Everyone had a meet night there.
Yeah. I think it still is.
It's still 100%. Like you can go on a weekday night.
I mean, I was also going for about 10 or 12 years straight every Friday night.
Yeah.
It was Friday night for the BMW crowd.
Yeah.
Friday night or
Wednesday nights for Mazda. At least I think it was Wednesday. Yeah. And yeah, so go have ice cream. Everyone, 15, 20 cars. The nice part about the Mazda 3 at that point in time, 2006 era ish, was that it was a really popular car. So we actually had a very large group gathering. Even if we had like a Tim's meet in the middle of winter, it was still 6 to 10 guys usually, which it was decent. So I was moderator on the forum and whatnot.
It was an attainable car.
Yeah, it was attainable. The mods were relatively decent. We were talking about, any of you out there who also know about NextMod, the Peter Pan, that's kind of where he started out with Mazda Crowd. I remember the lip I had, he made. It was a carbon fiber lip that he made, and it was, I think, 1 of 5 at that time, and you couldn't get them kind of thing. And
cool.
So that's where before he started NextMod, and then NextMod started, and there was all sorts of meets of Mazdas, which was really neat, all sorts of RX-7s, RX-8s. It was a good era for Mazda. It was actually a really fun era. That's when I got into cruises. I remember leading a couple cruises. We had like 50 cars long, 20 cars long. So that's where I kind of first started getting into the cruises and stuff.
So after the Mazda, next car was?
That's the era of Volkswagens and check engine lights.
Okay, so why German? So what was it? Did you get to drive somebody's Volkswagen and say that's my next car? Or what happened? Like, was it you just kind of always liked the shape of it? You're like, that's my next car?
I always liked GTIs. I'll put it that way. I always liked GTIs, and the Mark V GTI, I know wasn't a popular one, but I always liked the looks of it. That was the Das Auto era, whatever the heck.
Yo, P-Dub.
Anyway, so I always loved it. I wanted a four-door. I've always actually liked four-door cars better, usually, and it was my daily. So I went with the Jetta. I went with a Highline, but then I spec'd it out better than a GLI. My theory was, and we've talked about this again in another episode, do you buy the stock car or not? I said, why am I going to buy a GLI when it has less options than the Highline? I had a couple of better options than the Highline. And then I'm going to change the suspension, change the wheels, change the intake. Same motor.
Oh, okay.
Same motor.
That
So
makes sense,
there was the first time I played around with the turbo, so stage 2. It actually made great power. It was a really fun car too, and then I realized the first time I did autocross that this is not the right car to have. Front wheel drive was garbage. 19s with rubber bands are garbage.
They look good.
It looked okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was the Volkswagen era. So at that point, I had a Tiguan, a Mark IV Golf. That was questionable.
You did mention autocross.
Yes, sir.
Was that the first time ever doing anything competition?
Yeah.
In the Volkswagen?
I did the Mazda 3. I was on track, but nothing competitive.
So you did okay.
Yeah, it was more like a charity thing.
Right.
Yeah, but yeah, the Jetta was the first time, and it was at the point where we've talked about this, where you get a winter car.
Yep.
You get a winter car and then you realize it's definitely, even if it's a beater, you can do so much more with your summer car.
Yeah.
So at that point, I was like, oh yeah, why not? I have a second car, so I started to do autocross. It was through Vagcraft, which was an old show that I used to be around. So I did autocross with them, and then I did one other event. I don't remember who it was. And then I was like, this car is just garbage for this. It's just for looks. And in all honesty, the main reason I got rid of that car, there was a massive rattle in the driver rear, to the point where I had like 2 different shops take a boroscope and look for this rattle. Like, is there a weld broke? Like, it was bad. Like, was it? This is nothing. Couldn't find it. And I'm like, this is gone. I can't do it.
Just like that for a rattle.
Yeah, it was too. It spoiled the whole car.
Wow.
Yeah. So
all that money dumped into it, and just because a little rattle.
But that's what
a little
happened.
rattle beat David.
Well, that's what happens.
Just turn up the stereo.
I also had an Android stereo in there too.
Okay.
No, other than that, it was a great car.
Maybe the subwoofer caused the rattle.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, that one actually, that moved from I moved down. I went to a single 10.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, this is garbage. Back to 212s we go.
I don't know what happened. I got a rattle.
Yeah, weird. And it's rusting around the license plate bolts. And
Anyways.
So yeah, lots of Volkswagens there. That was kind of the era, and that was when I started going to Berlin Classic, big show here, and that was before we met, but that was kind of on the cusp. So I was
like 2012-ish.
So what happened is I was working in many different banks. I had moved from Kitchener to Collingwood. I worked at TD, CIBC, and BMO. And for a stint there, I said, I don't want to do banking anymore. And I tried working in the automotive industry. I said, I love cars, might as well work in the automotive industry. So I was a financial sales manager at Audi Barrie. And that was fun because it was literally the first, what you would consider a regular Audi dealership now with their design architecture. The Barrie one was actually the first one in Canada to have that design, where the interior of the building looked like a racetrack. Right, and the outside had that special siding.
So you're there upselling warranty and tint and trailer hitches and
so it good money.
Good old manager.
Yeah, manager. It was good money. It was a lot of fun. The best part about that was doing what they called Audi activation. So when you started at Audi, they'd fly people in from all over the country to Ontario. For us, it was just a drive, but we went to Hockley Valley and they lined up every new model.
Oh yeah.
That they had on the lot, because they wanted everyone to have the experience. They wanted salespeople to compare the cars, and not every dealership's going to have every car. So at that point, what we consider the current R8, the previous generation had just come out, 2015, 2016. So that was fun, trying the V10 R8 for the first time. I got in shit immediately for driving too fast down Hockley Valley Road. You're going to lose the license in the car. Okay, buddy, freaking chill. But I remember hooning. I had, for most of the day, I actually was carting around in an S8. That was really cool. Working in a dealership, it's a lot of fun, but there's a lot of downtime, but it just wasn't for me. It got to a point where I remember specifically one sales guy, and he's working with this guy, and he's trying to upsell him and sell the car, and then it's 10 o'clock at night, we're closed, and he's still trying to sell the car, and I have to sit here waiting for him to sell the car.
You guys close at 9, right?
I think we close at 9 or 9:30.
But the customer is just on
the customer's on the fence. We're not going to tell him we're closed because he's trying to sell the car. Whatever this guy needs, we're going to do, right? So sitting there waiting for this guy and then trying to sell him a lease and tint at 10:30 at night when I have to drive, another half hour, 40 minutes back home, it wasn't worth it. It wasn't worth it. So I went back to banking. And then at that point, I moved back to Kitchener, and I started working with our family business, which is Premier Machine and Gear, for anyone who wants to Google it. And we've joked around about it before. I am a gearhead. We make gears. I'll give you my elevator speech here. Most people, we think about transmission gears, right? Which we can do those. We actually make transmission gears, and sometimes we modify. If you ever want to, redo your transmission with Randy, we can actually help do that. We actually tore apart a Civic Type R just to take a look. We couldn't do anything with it because of how it was built, but at least we could take a look and kind of decipher what to do. But yeah, that's not our niche work. What we do is make gears. Our average size is about 30-inch diameter, 2-3 feet, and we go all the way up to 10 feet in diameter.
Oof, that's a big gear.
Yeah, you can use it as bed. So we do it. It's a lot of mining stuff, pulp and paper, oil and gas. So it's a great industry. I was a kid, watching Dad work on the machines, and that's where I am now, is helping out there. So that's a lot of fun. I love it.
That's good.
and it keeps me around cars enough too.
Yeah.
But yeah, so coming back to that, I just said that's it, done with Volkswagens. I had, like I said, too many, did some really stupid things like sticker bombing and modifying and stuff.
Really? You put stickers on a Volkswagen?
You have to. They give you, whenever you buy a Volkswagen, new or used, they give you a leaflet that says you must sticker the car.
Do you hear that?
That's how you add horsepower.
Okay. That's it.
So I went to a BMW.
Yeah.
I was bouncing around a little bit. I was still at Bank of Montreal, and Bank of Montreal had a school down the street from, I guess, close to Eurocharged, which is where you were before, and then close to 11Tenths as well. And that's when I was like, I need to tune my BMW. And that, I still love telling this story. Sorry if you've heard it before, but
Which Beamer?
it was a Z4, or it is a Z4.
The same Z4 you have now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh no, I'm not getting rid of it.
So
It's gonna die in my hands.
That was you personally, your first delve into BMWs.
Yeah, that I actually owned, not my brother's or dad's car. But that's I was modifying that car, and like that motor, the M54, there's not a lot you can do with it. And I was ready to throw some money at it, and I remember, hey, I'm thinking about doing cams. What do you think? And honest Randy over here was like, don't waste your money.
Yeah.
And then I saved up, and he helped me supercharge the car.
That's it. Yeah.
In the end, it was a long game, wasn't it?
If you're gonna drop $6,000 into a car, don't do it for cams where you might get 15 horsepower.
Yeah. Do it for a hell of a lot more. 100 horsepower.
Get a supercharger on there, yeah.
So that's how I met Randy. And that same year when we started talking about the car and just a tune is when I was still going to Berlin Classic and then started helping out. So that was the first year of the Island Tour when it was at Guelph Lake, which was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that was one of my favorite shows.
Yeah.
That location.
Yeah. I mean, it was a lot of fun, half the time just, fooling around. And so that's where it was. And I have to give Randy credit. He introduced me to a lot more of what I wanted to do. I was always in the show scene, but obviously given what I was doing when I was a teenager, I always wanted to go fast. And I didn't know how to get there. And I guess I didn't really Google it, but Randy introduced me to autocross and Trillium BMW Club and all sorts of other events. Driving school. Yeah, Hanson. So
racing. Yeah.
I remember asking Randy, I said, hey, which school should I go to first? And we talked about Trillium and Hanson. And that's how I got started off there. So I've done a ton of schools and track days now.
What's the next project? What do you got in the pipelines?
An E46 track car. That's the plan. Well, does that
a convertible?
No more convertibles. Something that can actually have a cage.
Oh shit.
Something that can have a cage. So the Z4 I was going to cage. We talked about this and same thing. Randy giving me good advice. It's like, don't ruin your car.
Yeah, it's a nice car. These cars they're kind of rare.
Yeah. Right? So I'll keep that for the street and working with 11Tenths on an E46 track car that I'll work on and and all sorts of stuff. So we didn't even get into the Milk for Coffee thing. So that doesn't actually have that interesting of a story. I'll be honest with you.
Well,
2015 or 16, everyone's on Instagram, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, I don't know what to create for a handle. And it was literally like a Saturday morning and I'm drinking coffee.
Oh no.
That's it.
That's the story.
That's it. Milk for Coffee.
Okay, well.
And I'm like, I'm gonna stick with this.
Listen, okay.
And obviously like I grew a bunch of followers and brand and I'm like, now I'm stuck. So, but yeah, doing a ton of stuff like 11Tenths. We do our stuff here together. If you haven't checked out my YouTube, I obviously have a Milk for Coffee YouTube and merch and stuff. And then this summer was Track Attack as well. I should say this past summer and hopefully this summer. So if you haven't checked out Track Attack Canada, shout out to them as well.
You're a host there too, right?
I am a host there as well. And that one you actually get to see me drive and sweat and talk about schnitzel and a lot of food talk always. Is it lunch yet?
Yeah.
So that's me.
Awesome.
It's been a pleasure, honestly. I hope dive in because I'm so new. I like to say we talk about a lot of it with Randy. Randy's the experienced guy. I'm the guy who builds off the experience, but I share a lot of that stuff too on the Milk for Coffee channel and my first time attack, for example. And I will talk about the first time we go to Grid Life and that kind of thing. But yeah, that's me.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, thanks for enlightening us.
Bringing everyone up to speed.
Yeah.
So no, it's been a pleasure. Next month, when I'm excited, we're going to talk about preparing your car for the track.
That's right.
So make sure you stay tuned.
Spring is coming.
Yeah.
Yeah. We got to get ready.
Yeah. Have a good one.
Excellent. Thanks for coming.